Thank you, Dr. Figueroa, for joining us here at UE St. Augustine to celebrate IGDS's 20th anniversary. If you could introduce yourself so we get to know more about you, please.
Okay. I'm Mark Figueroa. I am Professor of Caribbean Political Economy in the Department of Economics at UW-Mona. I've been involved in gender, political, economic, and various other types of research.
Okay, great. Here at St. Augustine Unit, we have a class of men and masculinities, and we often use your work on gender and education. And this morning you presented on a panel. Your topic was gender participation, achievement, and leadership at the University of the West Indies. If you could explain more of that to us and tell us how your panel went this morning.
Okay, it went quite well, actually. We had 3 speakers, and they all kind of meshed together. So we had a good panel, and it's a continuation of work I've been doing, mainly on gender and socioeconomic outcomes as they relate to education, higher education, to the University of the West Indies. My concern this time was about leadership, and I was looking at the numbers.
Okay.
Because basically my focus has been on trying to understand how the privileging of gender, how gender privileging leads to certain types of quantitative outcomes in higher education at the University of the West Indies in particular. And what I'm seeing is that over the next generation, my expectation is that the gap that we have seen in terms of the top leadership in the academy and in the administrative leadership, I expect it to close. And I expect it to close even if there are no special measures to remove the disadvantages that many women have in relation to the promotional process. Because the promotional process is in part self-selecting. You have to put yourself for promotion.
Yes.
And men tend to be a little more self-promotory than women, although there are many women who are self-promotory as well. So that even without those changes, I expect to see this. But in the discussions we had this morning and the interaction with some of my colleagues, some interesting issues came out. And I think the most important thing that came out this morning was that although we see women making choices to negotiate the gendered barriers and succeeding in higher education, succeeding in fields where they have qualification-based criteria for success, such as accounting, what we notice is that we're not really seeing what you might say is a fundamental challenge to the system to create the type of society which would allow men and women to, let us say, pursue both family-friendly as well as career or institutional-friendly careers. And in the absence of support systems, we often find that people have to choose, in a sense, between whether they're going to pursue their career relentlessly and or how do they balance that with family. And I think that many of the women's choices have been to go for those types of areas, for example, in senior administrative staff or in the professions like librarianship, where they can still maintain a balance in their life. And this may explain that although women are exercising their agency to actually take over spaces which men have formerly occupied, they're not, let us say, going straight to the top, because sometimes that involves, or they're not even seeking, not that they don't face barriers, but they're not seeking necessarily to go straight to the top because of the consequences for their personal life. So I think that in that interaction with my colleagues this morning, the thing that really came out was that although when you count the heads, when you look at the numbers, you see this transformation taking place, and I'm projecting that women will become the majority in the top leadership in the next generation. Although you see this happening, although you see women beginning in Jamaica to play much more important roles in the financial institutions and so forth, what we really need to consider are 2 things. One, is how do we create those support systems and change those and remove those barriers, let us say, which would allow women to be able to pursue a self-actualization, which doesn't force them to make these very difficult choices. And the other part of the story is in relation to men. And I think that one of the diagrams that I presented was a diagram showing how female registrations in engineering have moved from below 5% in 1975 to more than 35% at the present moment.
Yes.
Whereas in contrast, male registration in nursing, which was more administrative in 1975, but was about 10%,
yes.
has actually fallen over the period. Not that we're not training more male nurses, because we are, because nursing has expanded, but we are training proportionately more female nurses than we used to. So that basically what we're saying there is that women seem to have been better able to adjust to moving into spaces that men formerly were occupied. And men need to make this adjustment in finding their space in this new gender environment. And I think that this is where we need to look at multiple femininities, multiple masculinities, and we need to understand better how gender studies can zero in on mainstream masculinity,
yes.
and understand how we can get men to adjust their perspectives, their ideologies, everything in the context of the change in gender relationships, so that we can move towards a more equitable and a more wholesome and a more happy society.
Thank you so much. And your colleague Vivian Barrett would call it a gender just society. She speaks of gender justice. But one final question, what research do you have planned for the future, if any?
Well, I'm continuing on the same line in terms of gender and socioeconomic outcomes,
yes.
and especially in relation to leadership in general, but leadership in education, leadership in political areas.
Okay, well, thank you so much for supporting the IGDS, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.